It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, today we're going to jump on that gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to share some thoughts regarding static control. You know, static control is owned by 9-Star. We all know that 9-Star is that evil PRC company that got banned over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. I could call 9-Star an evil company because the Department of Homeland Security actually banned 9-Star along with a bunch of their subsidiaries for bringing their products into the U.S. supply chain, and they based that ban on the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. In other words, you're using forced and slave labor in your manufacturing process, don't bring your crap into our country. I mean, that's what the ban's all about. And in June of 2023, the Department of Homeland Security banned 9-Star along with a bunch of its subsidiaries for bringing their product into our supply chain. Now, static control is definitely a 9-Star subsidiary. But, folks, they're not on the ban list as static control, right? But I'm on static control's website, and I'm looking at their About Us, their history, and I run across something that just makes me ask this question. If static control was bought by Apex Microelectronics, is static control actually on the UFLPA ban list? Because Apex is, what am I missing? Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if the dictator Chi uses static control toner in his Phantom printer. But you know what he's all excited about? That dictator Chi gets excited every single day that one of his PRCs buys an American company. And folks, you know, I just want to share some stuff with you here. So I'm on the Department of Homeland Security website. I'm on the UFLPA entity list. These are all the companies that are banned for bringing their products into our supply chain here in the United States, right? 9-Star's on there. June of 2023, along with a bunch of their subsidiaries. And folks, one of those subsidiaries is Zhuhao Apex Microelectronics Company. And it says on Static Control's website, in their About Us, talking about their history, it says in 2015 that Static Control merged with a company called Apex Microelectronics. So naturally, I'm just thinking to myself, well, wait a second. If Apex Microelectronics bought Static Control and they own them, and Apex Microelectronics is a subsidiary of 9-Star and a subsidiary that was banned by the Department of Homeland Security, does that automatically ban Static Control? And then I'm thinking, well, surely not, because obviously we would have figured that out by now. I mean, this ban went into effect June of 2023. But I think it's a fair question that we should be asking the folks over there at Static Control. They should define exactly how are they involved with Apex Microelectronics. I mean, what the hell's going on here, right? Because you've been really confused by this. You know? I mean, it makes one think. Have these people ever been forced to work on Static Control products? And folks, I'm just asking the question because we all know that 9-Star got banned over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. And that's terrible stuff. It makes them an evil company. We also know that Static Control's flags flying proudly in front of the Zhuhao, China location of 9-Star. Right? Just like the Lexmark flag was flying there. The Lexmark came home to America because Xerox bought them. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, I wrote a couple articles in the last couple of weeks, and I want to share some thoughts out of both of them. I wrote an article this weekend. It was titled, Will Static Control Flag be the next one taken down at the 9-Star Zhuhao, China headquarters? You know, because I'm thinking maybe 9-Star will go ahead and sell off Static Control, get rid of it. You know, like they got rid of Lexmark. You know, maybe the sales aren't quite like they used to be before everybody found out that Static Control's owner, 9-Star, got banned by the Department of Homeland Security over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. But in that article, I say this. The Chinese Communist Party bets every day that the Americans who work in all the People's Republic of China companies located in America will defend and fight for their paychecks over any patriotism. Americans must insist that the Chinese Communist Party lose that bet. Unfortunately, I think the dictator Xi has a pretty good bet, and it's sad. Another article I wrote was a response as I witnessed some of the ex-Lexmark executives announcing their retirement now that Xerox bought the company. And it was pretty disturbing, the stuff I was reading, because they all forgot about the year 2016 when then their president and board decided to sell to a PRC company called Apex, which became 9-Star. But they didn't even talk about that. And I thought to myself, well, how disingenuous is this? Maybe if those leaders would have actually talked about what it was like, to be owned by a People's Republic of China company, which is all controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. That's a fact. There's no autonomy, no matter where these PRC subsidiaries are in the world. If it's owned by a PRC, a People's Republic of China, the dictator Xi has total control over the company. That's just a fact. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm hoping these ex-Lexmark executives, maybe they could go on the road and talk about that. Now that they don't have to be in fear of losing their paycheck. Very sad to have to say it that way, but folks, I'm not the only one that thinks that way. That article went over pretty well, about 14,000 impressions on LinkedIn, 101 likes, and 35 comments. So there's a lot of folks thinking about this too. And our friends at Static Control, maybe you could call up these folks at Lexmark and talk through this with them. Maybe the folks at Static Control won't be so fearful. I seriously doubt it, though. Sad. Should the BTA put a policy in place where all People's Republic of China companies must fly a Chinese flag at their booth? This isn't sarcasm. This isn't satire. This is a factual question. Should we do it? I mean, think about it. All these folks, they love to defend how it's not a big deal that they're owned by a Chinese company. But only if you bring it up. They'll never just start talking about it, right? It's like they all want to hide it, Like our friends at Lexmark are really good about it. But should they have to fly the Chinese flag right there at the booth? Or maybe they should have to put up a sign that says, hey, we're a Chinese-owned company. And our owners, 9-Star, actually got banned by the Department of Homeland Security over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. We just want to let you know. Now, we weren't one of those subsidiaries on the list, but our owners were. In other words, our owners were using forced enslaved labor in their manufacturing process, and the Department of Homeland Security banned them from bringing their products into the U.S. supply chain, but not us. I mean, should they do that? Or, I gotta really be honest with you. I think they should just ban them all together. I mean, I think the BTA should ban all PRCs that are on the UFLPA list. All of them. And all the subsidiaries they own, whether those subsidiaries are on the list or not, it doesn't matter. Hey, your parent company is on the list for using forced slave labor. You're one of their subsidiaries. I don't even care if you're on the list or not. You're not allowed to come and show your stuff at our meeting. You're not allowed to talk to dealers about selling your stuff because your owners, 9-Star, in the case of Static Control, are on the UFLPA ban list. The BTA got a new lawyer in there. The old lawyer wasn't really big on this, right? Could care less about it, to my opinion. I mean, I had to beg him to do a panel discussion way back when. Remember that? Of course, nothing's ever happened since then, right? Well, maybe it's time to bring it back up again. Maybe out there in North Carolina, the Static Control offices should have the China flag hanging up. Right? Just tell the whole world, hey, by the way, we're owned by the Chinese Communist Party. I think it's important, right? I think America this should be a policy in America. Seriously. If you're a company that's owned by a PRC, and the PRC has the controlling interest in your company, then you should have to fly the China flag out in front of your building. So everybody that drives by there knows that's a Chinese-owned company. That's the way I think. I'm reading an article in the Canada Report. And folks, I got to tell you something. This article is an interview with one of the leaders over there at Static Control. And I'm just thinking to myself, what the hell? There's so much you could be talking about, especially regarding your owners, 9-Star, and the UFLPA and all that stuff. But it's just a bunch of nonsense in this article. But the leader says something in this article I just thought was so crazy. Let me just read this to you. We're winning some significant businesses back because of that. And what they're talking about is that one of their competitors is distracted in the marketplace. And so they're getting their competitors' customers to come to Static Control to buy their toner. Well, we all know what the hell they're talking about, right? Well, they're talking about Caton. Caton, sells a lot of toner, right? And they decided they were going to sell some MFPs. And so they're saying in this article, I'm sure this, and of course, if I'm wrong, they could put in the comments, oh, Ray, you're totally wrong. That's not what we're talking about. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that I'm right. And then it makes me think of this. So dealers are more disturbed because Caton sells MFPs now than the fact that static control components owners were banned by the Department of Homeland Security over violating the UFLPA, Uyghurs Forced Labor Prevention Act. Really? So we got A3 MFPs versus forced enslaved labor. Let's go with forced enslaved labor. That's less upsetting to us than Caton selling A3s. Are you kidding me? This is so absurd. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if the leader of static control was being interviewed by me, we'd be talking about the UFLPA. That's probably why he'd never be interviewed by me. Let's just go where it's comfortable, where they won't bring it up. I can talk about how we're being winning all these deals because our competitor's selling A3. I'm thinking personally that Caton's probably taking business from static control because there's a lot of dealers that don't want to do business with a company whose owners got banned over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. That's what I'm thinking. I mean, folks, this is just crazy stuff, right? People ask me, Ray, where do you get your content? I'm thinking our industry does some really nutty things. What does the static control data privacy policy say? Remember the Lexmark data privacy policy? I remember it being horrifying. We share all kinds of data, not just personal data, with all of our locations around the world. I mean, that just made your imagination go crazy, right? You know, I couldn't find the static control privacy policy, but I sure like to know what it is. Maybe that's something they could talk about next time they get interviewed, right? I mean, holy crap. My friends at Static Control, what has the Lexmark U.S. leadership taught the industry? Should we expect the same propaganda from the U.S. leaders at Static Control? Sadly, I believe probably the answer is yes. Because the industry just doesn't want to pay attention to reality sometimes. And I know this is a tough damn conversation. There's no damn doubt about it. And it affects people. It affects all the Americans that work for a PRC company. It affects all the people that work for a PRC company that aren't communist Chinese people, right? I mean, the Communist Chinese Party just loves the fact that it can take advantage of its own people through force in China, and it can take advantage of people all over the world and all these PRCs that they own and control. Because all the people all over the world would rather fight for their paycheck than any kind of patriotism, which is kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what will happen to static control. I kind of hope it just goes away, to be honest with you. Because I don't have any respect for 9-Star, the evil company that got banned over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. And by default, it brings me great pain to say I'm very suspect of every single one of the subsidiaries of 9-Star. Just some things to think about, ladies and gentlemen, because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.